Hello and welcome. How's everybody been this week? What are your experiences? Again, either with the homework or any questions that came up or anything like that. Lisa, you're muted, hon. That's okay. I just did that too.
Probably a good thing. Um, so just wondering, are you if you're spending any more time on like imposter syndrome?
I could do, and you can also bring that to Friday, and
Okay,
we can always backtrack. But did you have a question? We can certainly address that.
no, we can wait till Friday because I know you have your plan and it's not a big deal. I'll bring it up.
I mean, the opening part of every session is reflection on what you've been working on. So if something came up, unless you think it's a big thing that we need to really tackle, we could certainly, it's up to you. Um,
It's just, it's a big one for me, I think, because um, I don't know whether I deny or reject things about myself. Like, I mean, things I've done or things that other parts of my life that, when people, and it made me think about it the other day when you said you used to be an actress and I used to be an actress. So I had this whole life where I was an actress and singing and everything else. And I have a friend who will say, Lisa's an actress, and she says it in the present. She's an actress and you know, I've done film production and she's a singer and and when she says it, I'm so busy sort of saying, I used to, that was a life before. And I just don't know how to reconcile those sort of things, because I think even when I was doing it, I have, how many times I've read the book, The Gift of Imperfection, trying to grasp the concept, you know, even when I was doing it, I always felt like, well, I'm a work in progress. I'm a work in progress. I'm a work in progress, not wanting to take a title. And I don't quite know. So I feel like it's a recurring thing in my life is not owning stuff that I've done as part of me now, because it feels that, and I don't know whether it's because I feel so disconnected from that. So when you said the other day you used to be an actress, I was wondering whether you sort of feel like you are, or whether, I don't know.
that's an excellent question. So
Mm,
let's talk about that for a second. The what is acting? Anyone can, it's a little quiz. What is acting? What is writing? What is painting? What is dancing? What is being a musician? What is that?
Being
A
creative,
performance.
Performance. What else?
being creative,
Being creative. Yeah.
yeah,
An act.
being expressive, I guess, and it's a form of expression.
Yeah. It's art.
Mm,
And when we get called to the arts, it is performative. It is creative. It is passionate.
yeah,
When you are an actor, you are taking someone else's words and embodying them and presenting a whole other being for people to see. That's a beautiful art form. Now, you may not physically be doing that now, but you sure as hell did. And that passion, even though you might not have the passion to do it now, or the ability or the time or the whatever,
mhm,
right? You did do it, and that creative spirit lives within you. It's part of who you are,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So when your friend says Lisa's an actress, and you may want to clarify, this is something that I did for many years and it was very important to me, you know. But
Yeah,
that's owning so that's telling the truth, but it's also owning that you're still a creative person. You
yeah.
can't turn that off. So I
Okay.
used to have imposter syndrome about writing because I started as a writer and then I became an actor. So when people would say, what do you do? I would go like this. I'm a writer. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? I'm a
Right.
writer.
Mhm.
And it took me until in my 30s when I said, why are you looking down or away? So, well, because I haven't had anything published.
Right. Hmm.
That's professional bullshit that we don't need to attach ourselves to, right? We don't, that's somebody else's judgment of us. Again, we come back to the non-judgment. So do you have passion and creativity within you that can manifest itself in many different ways? Sometimes maybe as an actor, sometimes as an interior designer, sometimes as a chef.
Right.
That's what matters, right? So when I, and also as a writer, it was like, well, do I write? Yeah, I keep a journal. I write an article now and again. Yeah, then you're a fucking writer. So own it and look them in the eye and say, yeah, I'm a writer. That's what I do. You know, if you're not currently acting, then you can say, yeah, that was something I did for many years and it was such a wonderful time of my life. That's all. It's
Mm.
not about you as a person because that never dies within you.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I need to stop kind of making excuses around it, but yeah, just own it.
Yeah.
But it always feels like you're over, like you're exaggerating because I'm not doing it right now. So it's like this me being, I like to clarify things and be sticking straight with the truth. And but it's just it's interesting to see my reaction. I don't like my reaction, but I just feel like she oversells me.
Yeah. And so another way, and actually what we're going to talk about today kind of is this is a beautiful bridge. She oversells me. Check that. Ask yourself, what what do you think is behind that?
Hmm.
What's the reason she quote unquote oversells you? What do you think? Is it for her or is it for you? What do you think her view of you is?
Yeah, no, she believes what she's saying.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. So we really have to understand or try to understand um the impetus behind that is she's proud of you.
yeah, and she's not saying anything that I haven't done.
Exactly.
It just feels, I guess I feel very disconnected from it because it feels so long ago that
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
But it is something that you did, and it is a passion that does not die, although it may take different forms.
yeah. Mhm.
So it doesn't to clarify and say I'm not currently acting is fine. That doesn't diminish that you did it in the past or make you any less or make you an imposter in any way.
Mm.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And also taking to heart that someone that you love is proud of you and that's why she's saying this.
Yeah.
Let that resonate.
Yeah.
That's a little more self-loving, you know?
Okay.
Yeah. And so, yeah, and it still happens to me all the time. You know, Rachel did this, Rachel did that. I'm like, that did past tense. I don't do it anymore. But here's what I'm doing now that I love. Right. So you might bring that into the conversation if you feel like, how did your creative passion, where is it now for you?
Yeah.
Right. Now I'm
And
doing this.
maybe that's my problem because I'm not doing the things that I would love to be doing.
But,
So
but
what am I doing now? Well,
yeah, what are you doing now? Just curious. And that's not a pressure question. That's how do you fill your time? What do you do that gives you joy?
I don't have much of a creative outlet. I mean, I do real estate, but I guess my creativity is I do like interior design and I stage houses, and that's where my creativity is funneled these days. But
There you go. Do you not see a parallel?
I do, but I think I just loved what I did before far more.
Okay.
So,
But
but I
what you
do,
love about it,
I do love doing interior design and creative design. I do like,
that's
so
your creative passion taking another form
yeah.
as needed based on where you are in your life. So it's about championing yourself and saying, because I'm thinking like interior design is like setting a stage, isn't it?
Hmm.
And you
Yeah.
want the audience to walk in and love the play that you've set up, right? That's fucking
Yeah.
awesome. right? So it's like, yeah, but here's what I do now. And
Yeah.
and doing real estate, that's your character, right? Is like, I'm going to present to you the home that you're looking for. And that's not a sales thing. That's you desiring people to have a place that they feel comfortable,
Right, exactly. Hmm.
right? So to say what you do now with pride, even though it's like, well, I'm not doing those fabulous things I did in my 20s and 30s or whatever, or even 40s.
Right.
That's you kind of shitting on yourself. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
That's
Instead
how
of
I feel. I feel like
embracing,
I'm diminishing myself instead of.
right. So it's like, instead, get behind what your choices are,
Okay.
because you made them for a damn good reason.
Yeah.
You know, and in terms of creativity, you can say, what did I love about acting, being on stage or being in front of the camera or whatever it was, that I can bring to my current creative work? Because what you're doing, I'm sorry, is very creative.
Yeah. It
Staging
is.
homes is really creative,
Yeah.
you know. So, and
Okay.
that's between you and you. We're not going through that now. But see how that resonates with you, and then let's check in on Friday and see how you feel.
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Rachel, can I say something very quick to
of course.
Lisa?
Of
I
course.
used to be a dentist, and if someone presents as me as a dentist right now, I will right away correct, the person, because like it's been more than 10 years that I don't practice. I'm not a dentist anymore. But I'm super proud of that part of my life. If someone wants me to talk about it, or even that I have friends that wants still advice from me as a dentist, I totally jump in, and I can talk hours and hours about it. And I used to be a model before, and I don't do it anymore. And someone will say it right now, I'll be like, no, 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 that was like when I was younger. I will say that because modeling was the younger part of my life. And I love to talk about when I travel as a model, things like that. So like I don't feel what I'm trying to say is that don't feel because you wanna deny it right now. It's like Rachel says, is nothing imposter syndrome. It's more like that was something that I used to do before, and it's nothing wrong with that. And I am a person that loves to do like different things. Like sometimes I want to be a groomer, and I'm like, how a producer will be a fucking groomer, like a dog groomer. And I'm like, fuck it. I just have one life, and I can do multiple things, and I don't fucking care. So like, just if you want to go back and acting, just do it, and that could be your hobby. That's it.
There we go. I'll give you a hat.
Beautiful.
Thank
Oh,
you.
lovely, lovely. Hey, that's a great point too. I used to sing as well, and then I thought, oh, I need to sing again. I was watching my son's middle school chorus, and I was like, why doesn't he sing out? Why doesn't he know how beautiful his voice is? And I was like, honey, you're projecting onto your son. You want to sing again, then go sing. You know what I mean? Just like Gloria was saying, even if it's a hobby, do it. If you really want to get on stage again, or be in a small film, you could do that if you wanted to. Right. So I think we made that point. So
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you, Gloria, because all that
Thank you.
really supports the power that we're talking about.
Mhm.
You are the architect of your whole life. So you can do whatever the fuck you want. Like as Gloria so rightly said, and fuck it. If I want to be a dog groomer, that's what I'm gonna do. I love it.
Thank
Okay,
you.
absolutely. And again, feel free to bring this back in on Friday when you've had some time to compost it.
Thank you.
Good. So I want to make sure we get to everything today. Good. So we're talking today about compassionate communication. Specifically, we're going to get back into compassionate communication in week 7 when we talk about self and community. But we're starting our conversation with something that many of us have trouble with, which is creating healthy boundaries. Anyone? Raise your hand. Any boundary problems? Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. Lovely. So boundaries. So the very simple way that we talk about boundaries is, and we're going to go through this in a second, but we think about it as protection for our energy. But what we want to be really careful about is that we are creating, and I stress, loving boundaries, but not walls. Where boundaries are in place to actually make your relationships stronger, not for you to just isolate yourself from somebody or somebody's energy. Does that make sense? That's where people fail when they think about creating boundaries. So let's go through, sorry, it's a little bit of a slideshow today, so just bear with me, but we will have an exercise in a little bit. So, but I really want to go through this in a way that you'll understand it. Well, hang on a second. There we are. Couldn't find it. Okay, can everybody see that all right? The screen? Okay, beautiful. So we want to talk about what's the difference between boundaries versus walls. Here's what a boundary is. It establishes your relationship within, it establishes your position within a situation or a relationship. We're going to get into this in a second, but as I just mentioned, it strengthens your relationship to others and to yourself. And it actually, when we do it right, it actually opens our heart. It doesn't close our heart. When we talk about creating a wall between ourselves and someone else, it actually isolates us, right? You can't talk to me that I'm shutting this relationship off because you can't talk to me the way I want you to, or whatever. It weakens our bond with other people and it closes our heart, right? So has any, show of hands, anybody ever thought, I'd like to make a boundary, but I can't, or I don't know how? Okay. All right. Yeah. So here are some common objections to setting boundaries. I don't want to hurt the other person's feelings, right? And if you have any, please raise your hand and we'll add to these. I don't know what to say when I want to create a boundary. What if the other person gets angry at me if I create a boundary? What if it ruins our relationship? I'm afraid my boundary won't be honored. Do those all sound pretty resonant? Yeah, okay. Anything else that comes up about boundaries? You can just unmute yourself. That any other things that have stopped you in the past from setting a boundary? Okay. And we can, again, if you think of something later, jot it down and we'll circle back around to it. If not today, then on Friday. So here's what I'd like you to do. This is your boundaries mantra as you learn how to compassionately communicate with other people around boundaries. My boundaries benefit both of us. Okay. What does that mean? Let's show. So how does that work? When we create a boundary, you're actually protecting the other person. So we think it's protecting us, protecting our energy, but you're actually also protecting the other person from your anger, your resentment, your passive aggression. And that's how you serve the other person in a loving way. So when you create a boundary, and as we're talking, be thinking about some boundaries that you'd like to cross. I'll give you an example of one. This is actually true for a couple of clients. So I think it's a good one because I've seen it show up a lot. I have a client whose mother texts her every morning at 7 in the morning without fail. Her mother is a narcissist and needs to be the center of her daughter's attention at all times. So we, in fact, for the last maybe year and a half, we have been exclusively working on boundaries with her mother. And she's been doing great, but this was a big boundary crossing for her. She has to get up. And if she doesn't get up, open the phone and respond to her mother, she'll get 12 more texts, right? So she has sort of swallowed her needs in the moment, which is to sleep for a few more minutes in order to, you know, tend to this needy person in her life. So we worked on creating a boundary where she could say to her mother, and I'm going to use this example as we go through. We worked on a boundary to help her articulate her needs to her mother. If she didn't create that boundary with her mother, she was already experiencing this. It's why she went into therapy. She was angry at her mom. She resented all of that time waste. And she was really passive aggressive with her mother. No matter how nice her mom might have been, she was snappy back at her because she didn't have a strong boundary in place. Make sense? Okay. Next. All right. So this is how we create loving boundaries. It's essential to know why you are creating the boundary. So in my client's case, I'm creating the boundary because I need some autonomy. I need some peace in the morning where my mother isn't the first thing in my psyche, right? When I'm trying to wake up in the morning. Imagine what it would be like without that boundary. This is an easy one for many of us. What would it be like to just let it keep going on the way it is, right? And for her, she'd be like, I would lose sleep. I wouldn't be able to deal with my mom. I would continue to be angry and resentful, et cetera, et cetera. And well, I just gave you that. Consider the effects of not having the boundary. So again, more passive aggressiveness, more anger, and she is losing energy. My client is losing her energy because she's leaking it out toward tending to her mother's neediness. It's also really important when we create that loving boundary, and you guys are all old hands at this now, but staying grounded in your highest self. Your highest self knows what's best for you. And now you're talking to your highest self on a regular basis, and you're listening to your highest self, and your highest self is saying, hey, you don't need to put up with this, right? The same highest self that says, you know, you don't need to make that chicken soup right now. You don't need to do everything on the to-do list right now. So the best way to call our highest self is to drop into your body. Feel your feet. Turning off the chatter. That allows our that literally is like the way Aquaman calls to the sea animals, right? Or whatever he does, you know, that's how we call to our highest self. We drop in, we get quiet. And always, always remind yourself of that mantra. My boundaries benefit both of us. So that really appeals to the people pleasers, right? The part about like, I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to, what if I eat? You're actually doing them a favor. You're protecting them from your anger, from your passive aggression, from your resentment. Okay. Hang on. It's a little slow here. Okay. So what's really important in how we do this, what does it look like to actually create a boundary? It's important to choose the right time. You don't want to start creating a boundary if you're in the middle of an argument. Or, for example, if, and we're going to talk about radical honesty in a minute, but we want to make sure that we that otherwise we're clean and clear in the conversation, right? So if you're in an argument or if somebody is very stressed out, that's not a great time to create a boundary. Speak clearly and calmly. That's being grounded in yourself. Keep yourself, as I just said, keep yourself grounded as you speak. That helps you to stay clear and calm. Breathe, reconnect. Make sure that you're using I statements, right? And loving, caring language, not like, don't do that to me. That puts anybody on the defensive. It's like, I have trouble connecting with you when you speak loudly. Could you just please speak a little softer? You know what I'm saying? that kind of thing. And then we're using radical honesty. So radical honesty, as it says here, radical honesty is stating a positive outcome that's obvious to you. It's the reason you're creating the boundary, but it may not be obvious to the other person. So the example there is, my alone time helps me be a better partner to you. Do you see where you're pointing out a benefit that they get from your boundary creation? Does it make sense? I know I'm going through a lot of stuff really quickly, so please, if there are any yeah buts or confusion, just put your hand up and I'll stop. So when we use radical honesty, what we're saying is, this is as it says on the other example, I really want to hear what you're saying. But if you're yelling at me, I'm having trouble connecting, you know? Right? So when we, and we'll talk about radical honesty as we go through this, but it really is saying okay, so I'll use my client example again. Mom, when you text me in the morning, it wakes me up and I have real trouble, starting my day properly. Now that's radical honesty, but you see the missing part is that it doesn't say anything about the mom, right? She may get defensive. Oh, well, I'm sorry I bothered you, right? Whereas if we use radical honesty in this way, we can say, I'm not awake in the morning. And when you text me, I'm not able to be fully present for you. If you wait an hour, I'll be able to really respond to your text. Does that make sense? Oh, I see. Right? So it's like, now you're giving the mom a benefit. So the radical honesty isn't like, I get mad when you text me early, even that's radical honesty. But what we're doing is we're saying, this is why I'm creating this boundary, is so that we can communicate better and more efficiently. Does that make sense? Okay. Bear with me, one more before we take a breather. Okay. Also, again, highest self being embodied. When you come from a place of love, your boundary will as well. Boundaries are in place for the benefit of both people. That's your mantra, right? So when you're coming from the place of love, when you're creating a boundary, not just to be a bitch, which is not helpful, but to better the relationship you have with this person, then your boundary will also come from that place of love. This is a hard one for people pleasers. You don't have to justify or explain your boundary. Now, some cases it's helpful to do that, but you're not required to. You don't have to, like, for example, with my client, Mom, it would be really better if you waited an hour to text me because I'm really not able to be present for you. Well, why? Why can't you just be up at 7? I'm up at 6. You don't have to justify that, right? You say, well, this is the way that I work, right? That's all. You don't have to go into, well, because I'm usually up late watching Netflix. It's not anybody else's concern. And this is the important part. And this is a big one. How others react to your boundary is their business, not yours. So be prepared for people who are not as balanced as you are to lose their shit a little bit. And it does happen. And it did happen with my client. But when you are grounded in your place of love, that's the thing that stops you from being blown over and losing your center. You know that you're coming from a place of love. And sometimes you have to repeat that. I'm doing this because I want our relationship to be better, Mom. Sometimes you have to say that. Whether she gets it or not is not your business. And again, using radical honesty as when needed, as I just pointed out. Any questions about that? That's a lot I just dumped on you, but do you see boundaries in a little bit of a different way? than you did? Okay. Yeah. Any questions or thoughts?
I just want to clarify, the radical honesty is saying the honest thing, but what benefits the other person, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The radical honesty comes up when to say like, and again, you don't have to get specific about like, well, if you keep texting me at 7 and I keep letting you do it, I'm going to be mad at you all the time. You don't want that, do you? That can bring them to the defensive. But what you can say is, you know, what we want to focus on is the positive result of the boundary, right? The positive result of the boundary is I will be more present for you. And this takes practice, guys. So don't worry about if it doesn't make perfect sense. And we're going to do a little bit of a practice in a minute. So again, we've been focusing on the other person, but compassionate communication goes hand in hand with our sense of self, right? Because when we honor our needs, we begin to increase that healthy relationship. So where does this fall in the 3 W's of self-awareness, self-compassion, self-trust, all leading to self-acceptance? Let me ask you guys, where do you think compassionate communication or creating healthy boundaries, where do you think that falls in self-awareness, self-compassion, self-trust? It may be more than one.
Definitely self-trust and self-compassion.
Yep. Anybody else?
I was thinking self-awareness.
Yep. Christina? And you want to take a stab?
Sure. Yeah, I was. Oh, am I on? Whoops.
Yeah.
Ah! Sorry, I hit too many buttons. I was thinking the same. Like first, it's like self-awareness to establish what is the boundary that I need, right? So I have to have awareness before I can figure out what the boundary is. So awareness of, oh, I'm angry and passive aggressive. So I think that's sort of like step one. Because I was just thinking about all these things that you're saying and how it takes practice also to even be able to figure out what to say, to have that to be loving in the response, you know. And because I was listening to you, I'm like, damn, that's good. You know, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to practice finding those kinds of words. So awareness and self-awareness would be like, you know, my number one thing.
Beautiful. And guess what? Surprise, surprise, you are all correct. It is all 3. What Christina and Gloria had pointed out, yeah, you need to have self-awareness to understand why you have the boundary in the first place, that you need a boundary in the first place. Self-compassion comes in when you start working with the boundary. You have to have a sense of self-love, self-compassion, the desire to protect yourself, to get what you need because you're worth it, right? And then the self-trust comes in to know how to do that in an effective way that is compassionate for all, right? I trust that I know how to speak this truth to someone, right? Right. So that's why boundaries are such a big one. Like they're self-talk, boundaries, imposter syndrome, all those are like the big 3, right? Where they really hit on all those points, you know? So good. You got that. But so that's what I wanted to stress as in this little break here is this is really coming back to you. We're talking about setting boundaries with others, but don't forget, everything comes from this magical core, right? So what Christina said is spot on as well. When we know we need to make a boundary, we have to sit for a minute and say, and say, what is it? Again, with the, how do we create the boundary? Know why we're creating it, right? Make sure that this is for the benefit of both, right? And how will I then find the right words to make the boundary clear? So with my client, it was, she basically said that. It was like, well, and then they came up with a compromise. I want to give you the happy ending. Her mom is a piece of work, I'll say that. But she told her mother, listen, this was the compromise. You can go ahead and text me whenever you want, but I'm not going to respond until 8 o'clock. You know what I mean? Love it. Right? So I don't have all the answers, right? I would have said, don't text me till 8, but that worked for her and her mom. So her mother now knows, if you don't hear from me, you won't hear from me until 8 o'clock, because that's when's convenient for me. And she did use the radical honesty. I'm not going to be there. I'm not able to, I'm not even thinking properly. I'm still in dream mode. I'm not going to be able to talk to you, right? And her mom got it, figured it out. Who knew? Okay, so yeah. Creating boundaries also is so important for our self-care and for compassionate communication with others, which is the other part of how we live, right? Which is we live with others, right? So what we're going to do now is a little bit of a boundary practice. And I'm going to leave this screen up while you can screenshot it or you can take a photo of it if you want. But I'll let you do that first. What I'd like you to do for the next few moments is, what time is it? Good. I just want to make sure we're good on time. What I'd like you to do is think about just one boundary that you would either like to make with someone now in your life currently, or think of a time you did not have a good boundary with someone. So if there's nothing going on right now that you are having a boundary issue with, but maybe somebody in the past that you wish you might have handled it a little differently, we're going to just use that as the exercise. So are you clear? So I'll give you some examples. It could be a boundary at work. Somebody's constantly asking you to do things when it's not convenient for you. It could be a personal boundary, someone calling you or expecting things of you when you're not ready, a friend who constantly needs you to be there for them 100% of the time, whenever they're, it could be a client calling you at all hours. It could be somebody infringing on your space and time. Could be a partner, right? Not understanding that maybe you need some solitude in your life and they want you to be there with them all the time. Does that make sense? Could be a child, right? Okay, so just take a moment and I'd like you to jot down the boundary issue first, just that step one, right? So what is the boundary and with whom? Make sense? Okay, so go ahead and do that. And just let me know when you have the situation. Anybody need more time? No, you're good? Okay, everybody good? Great. Now, you might use these examples here on the screen as a guide, but what I'd like you to do, and to get you started, but I'd like you to now create a boundary statement for that situation. Bonus points if you can work in some radical honesty. So you might want to start with a boundary statement and then add a radical honesty statement. Why are you doing it for them? In what way does this benefit them? Make sense? Okay. Okay. Anybody need more time? Okay. Good. So who would like to share first? So first just read the the boundary scenario and then your boundary statement and ideally your radical honesty portion. Who'd like to go? Just unmute and go ahead. Okay, Christina.
Um, it's funny because I've been thinking a lot about this already. It's about my husband, and he's been away, and I've been thinking about how I'm going to approach this. So, he likes to, this is going to sound funny, but he likes to cook. He finds it relaxing. Um, but for me, the issue is that, he comes home and it's already late, and then by the time he cooks, it's late, and then it's too late for me to eat. But I feel like I should really be grateful and appreciate the fact that he cooks, which is awesome. But then because I eat late, I have trouble sleeping, et cetera, et cetera.
Hmm.
So, um, okay. So that's the issue.
It's a great one.
Right? Because, like I feel like, oh, well, I
Yeah.
should be so grateful because my husband is cooking and he comes home from work and then he cooks and
Mhm.
um and then I thought, well, the boundary statement, I could say to him, I love and appreciate that you want to cook and that you find it relaxing. Um, but I need to eat earlier as I'm hungry at an earlier time. And, so that was sort of like, I thought the boundary. Um, And then the radical honesty part is really just kind of similar in that it's actually important to my health that I eat earlier, because if I eat late, then it affects my sleep. And then it's like for me, it's like a vicious cycle of not feeling good. He also tends to cook heavier, like he uses a lot of butter and breadcrumbs, and that also doesn't agree with me. So I thought maybe I could try to mention something, because he's very sensitive. I don't want to say like, oh, your cooking's horrible, because it's not, but you know, something like it just doesn't, it's just not great for my health. I don't know.
Mhm.
So
Okay, so radical, beautiful. I love this. And this is such a great example because it's so real. So think about, I want to revisit your radical honesty statement. It's so true, right? I don't sleep as well. I don't feel as good. How does that affect him? Right? So again, we're looking for like a little bit of a benefit. What does that mean? What might happen if you don't get enough sleep or you don't feel well?
yeah, then I'm not available.
Yeah,
I'm a cranky pants.
yeah. You can just put it right like that. And I don't want to be a cranky pants to you because I didn't get enough sleep or my stomach feels right.
Yeah.
I love that you started with how appreciative you are because you were saying, well, shouldn't I be appreciative? You are appreciative. Because you don't choose to eat when he eats does not mean you're not appreciative of his cooking.
Right.
Right? That's again, when we really look at and piece it apart, ask, what is the truth here? Of course, you're appreciative of his cooking. And if it were Sunday afternoon, you might feel differently, right? Right? So, knowing your body as you do and knowing what works for you, he reaps the benefit of you being in your top shape
Right.
energetically, getting enough sleep, not feeling bloated and heavy, right? That's part of it. Right? So it may be, and this is up to you entirely, but I'm just showing you how many offshoots these kinds of boundaries can have. You can decide how you want to stay connected while maintaining your boundary. For example, I will sit with you and have a glass of tea or water or wine or whatever. I may not eat, but I will have it tomorrow for sure. Right? Or I may only have a quarter of a portion, or I may just taste it because I can't wait to taste the creative thing that you've done. Right? I may just have a bite. But I promise, but later when later when it's a different time, it's not so late at night. I can't wait to have a full plate of this, whatever it works like for you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so what he hears ideally will be, she is appreciative of my eating. The timing isn't great for her, but she's going to enjoy it on her time. Right? Now, just to give you the other side of it, and I'm not saying I don't know your husband at all, so I'm just saying that a person who is a little more sensitive or is easily wounded by things like this, which again is not your concern, might say, well, you don't care about what I eat, or there's something wrong with you if you can't eat at night. In Europe, they eat at 10 o'clock. Yeah, all that is crap, fla, 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 that has nothing to do with you, right? That's why we stay strong in our highest self. That is their storyline that they are trying to impose upon you. And so when and if that ever happens in any of our boundary creations, we keep coming back to the radical honesty. I love what you're cooking. I hear what you're saying. I need to do this. And I promise you, ultimately, it's better for us both because I won't be cranky, because I won't be overtired, and I will better be able to appreciate your meal when it's on my time. Yeah? If he still can't get it, that conversation has to drop and you'll have to agree to disagree. But what matters is that you are maintaining a boundary. And what does that do? You retain all that energy that you have been pushing toward just trying to make him happy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you get to feel like, damn, girl, I just did that for myself. I just looked out for myself and my tummy, you know,
Yeah.
and that means something. And whether he accepts it or not, and which, by the way, little secret from having done therapy a long time, they do eventually accept it. They do eventually accept it. Right. Beautiful. Does that make sense, Christina?
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. Again, like you're saying, to bring it around to how me having that boundary is good for everybody.
Yeah. That's why we create them. Remember, we are all interconnected. We are all siblings. We are all vibrating beings, and spirits having a human experience. And so what we do to ourselves, we do to others. If we are denying our needs, we are then denying a healthy relationship with the other because we're not happy. And they're going to pick up on that energy one way or another, covertly or overtly. Right? Okay. Love it.
Rachel, can I just say something about that? It's possible also like a Christina can talk like that, say that, but also she can be flexible into like, for example, there are some days that I will break that boundary, meaning because, for example, in my case with my husband, he say like, oh, I stopped cooking for you because you have so many dietary restrictions, like no gluten, no dairy, shit, you know? So at the end, yes, that was the case. I was just cooking for myself. My food was so different than him. And then at some point I relaxed a little bit and I was like, oh, I'm gonna enjoy a pizza with him, even though this is not allowed for me because I'm not allowed, I don't need gluten. But then I will start like being so rigid, you know, and then we can have those moments. So maybe they can sometime, like she can break one day if she please, you know, to have dinner later, or just that greasy meaty food, you know, just to sometimes he can get pleased and sometimes she actually will enjoy to have that moment, but not every night, you know.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's what we were talking about earlier is Christina will figure out what she needs. She's going to consult with her highest self. They're going to have a little conversation about what might be a compromise or if she wants to have a compromise at all.
Mhm.
Right? Because like, for example, if you're eating pizza, even though you have a gluten issue, that's a
I mean,
choice.
it's not,
Yeah.
yeah. It's not a
But
gluten issue, it's more like to get fat. But yeah, like that's something that
okay.
I chose.
All right.
That's something,
Okay,
like
so
you say, that's something that I chose, right?
exactly,
Like
that's a
my
choice.
decision. Mhm.
That's right. And that's why it works for you. So
Mhm,
Christine is going to figure out what works for her. And I threw out some examples, right? Like maybe once a week I'll eat with you, or I'll only have a bite, or I will sit with you while you eat so we can talk, right? And I'll have some tomorrow for lunch or whenever is better for my digestive system. But again, it's not even just about like make them feel better about themselves, because remember, this is for you. How they take it is not really important so much as it is that you're getting your needs honored as
Covered,
best
yeah.
as you can. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. Christina?
Yeah, so what is great about this is because what I'm realizing what was happening before is I was getting mad because in my mind all of a sudden I'm saying, boy, my husband, he doesn't care about my health because
There
he
you
keeps
go.
cooking like this.
There you
And
go.
I keep trying to say that I don't want to eat this way, but because that's what he likes.
Right.
So now I'm getting angry and aggressive, passive aggressive instead of having a healthy boundary. And I love the idea of saying, I'm going to sit with you and have my tea. And we are still together. So it's still the energy of sitting down together. It's just he can have his delicious dinner and I can have my space. And then definitely, like on a weekend or something, I can eat later. But, you
Yeah.
know,
That's up to you.
yeah, like just this time of my life with menopause, and I've just put on a lot of weight. It's actually unhealthy, and I want to feel better. So anyway,
Right.
yeah.
And by the way, that falls into a category of you can decide whether or not you want to divulge that information. Like you don't have to justify your boundary. Well, I'm going through menopause. Well, I don't. you don't have to unless that's the kind of relationship you have with your husband and he'd be like, oh, honey, I understand. Right? That's fine. But that's, again, you don't have to justify why you don't want to eat heavy food at night.
Or on a weekend, he can cook earlier. Not that you have to eat later. He
Or
can
that
cook
too.
earlier, you know?
Right. That's another option. That's another option. Could you change the time that you eat? I know he cooks when he comes home from work, but that's a great point. Yeah. Okay, we're nearing 2 o'clock and I want to get to both of you. And I have a little bit more teachy stuff. Is everybody okay hanging on a few more minutes than
Yeah.
past 2 o'clock?
Mhm.
Okay. So having said that, would anyone else like to share their boundary and boundary statement? Okay, great. Lisa,
I
go
have
ahead.
a friend who has stage 4 cancer and 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 needs help. And she has a lot of people that she can get help from. But I would do a lot of sort of chopping up veggies and cooking for her. But she wants more time than I have to give. And a lot of the time, that's fine, but it gets to the point where she will be I allow myself to feel guilty because she'll keep asking and saying, remember what's important and trying to sort of demand time. And then I feel resentful because I feel like I'm giving a lot of time and I just don't always have it. Um, so I guess that's the situation. And I guess I just need to be able to say, I would love to get together, but I don't have time this week, or I don't have time right now. I'd rather schedule a time when we can get together where I won't be distracted and pressured, and you can have my undivided attention.
Oh, beautiful.
So,
Did you guys feel that? Hang on, I'm gonna put this back on gallery. Did you feel that? The way that she said that? How did it feel when she said that? Especially the radical honesty part.
Felt calming and powerful and grounding. Like I actually took a breath.
Mhm. Mhm.
mm,
Yeah. And you see how she's honoring her friend in that statement. I want to be fully present with you, you know? And you can even paint a picture. If I try to go and have coffee with you or hang out with you now, I'm going to be looking at my watch. I'm going to be checking my phone. That's not fair to you,
mm.
right? Painting the picture further sometimes helps, like more radical honesty. That's beautiful, Lisa. That was really gorgeous. How do you feel about it? Never mind us. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, no, I need to feel okay and I need to be able to speak it instead of getting angry because it's like I get texts from her and it's like, you know, I there's no doubt it's very important and I feel like I'm giving, but she'll say, you're the only one who can make me calm. Actually, I have lots of friends, but you're the one who can keep me calm. And it's like, well, you're doing the opposite to me because I'm giving you what I have and I need to pay my bills. And I'm
Mhm.
stressed about my finance. I'm stressed with these things. So instead I'll look at the text message and think,
Mhm.
whereas if I can just then say, just put it out there and then,
Yeah.
like you said, however she responds
Mhm.
is how she responds. And there've been times when I've had to say, look, I know you say you have a lot of people. I can't chop veggies right now.
Yeah.
And she said, oh, no problem, no problem. But I just need to be able to say it calmly and thank you for being clear about what she is going to get out of it, not just about why I can't do it.
Yeah, exactly. And also remembering, remembering for yourself why the boundary is in place, which is you want to be present for your friend. You want to be able to look at that text and say, am I free? Instead of, you know, yeah, you want to just be able to go like, am I free? No, I'm not. Oh, honey, I wish I could. Let's schedule another time. I'm busy.
Yeah.
You know, and the part about the guilt that you feel, remember again, my boundary is of benefit to both people. So you're doing her a service that will
Right.
help alleviate the guilt. You're
Right.
doing her the service of full attention and no anger and resentment.
Yeah.
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 Or
Exactly.
trying to avoid her, which is even worse.
Yeah. I'm enjoying my time while I'm with her instead of
Yes.
feeling like it's not a choice, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, that was so beautifully written. Yeah,
Thank you.
nice. Gloria, would you like to share?
Yes, can you hear me? Yes, okay. I thought I was on mute. Um, I choose a boundary that I used to bother me in the past. I don't know why it doesn't bother me anymore, or probably it's, I don't know, maybe it's not even present, or maybe it doesn't bother me. But and then I have a little question. But okay, I want to share this. So, it used to bother me a lot when my husband, I will wake up in the morning and I'm not even starting the fucking day, and he will talk about work, you know? And I was like, oh, like I want to enjoy my morning, my breakfast, like whatever I do, my morning routine without like any talk about work. Again, it doesn't bother me anymore. I don't even realize if we talk about work in the morning. But I never say anything, but I will say probably, I wrote this. I would like to start my mornings not talking about work, and that will help me to concentrate at work after my morning routine slash breakfast. Something like that. I couldn't find like something that benefits him, because the benefit would be like I won't be mad at you, you know. But um it was like, yeah, it was making me very like grumpy in the morning, and I didn't like to feel like that, you
Yeah,
know.
but that's his benefit. Who
Mm.
wants to be
Me
with a
not being grumpy.
grumpy Gloria, you
Yeah.
know? So his benefit is not only, and you actually said it, it's sort of embedded, but you could turn the volume up on it a little bit. Like you actually, can you read that last segment again?
Talking about work, and that will help me to concentrate at work after my morning routine breakfast.
That will help me to concentrate. That
Yeah,
benefits him.
or one he's saying, you know, like being more present.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now
Yeah.
again, like it's what Lisa was saying too. I'll be more present after
Mhm.
I've had my coffee and my silence and my, you know, playing with the dogs or whatever it is you need to do before you start talking about work. He
Yeah.
benefits from that. I mean, I know this is in the past, but you can see
Yeah.
how this works, right?
Yeah. And my question goes like this, because like I literally tend to talk about work like even Sundays. Like I'm breaking my own fucking boundary, you know. Um, it doesn't bother me anymore. But for example, with your client situation where the mom was texting in the morning, I have a group chat with some people, like just we are four total, about the film that we did last year. And some of them wake up earlier, some of them are in Easter coast, so Easter time. So I wake, like I have text at 7 a.m. and I will be like so pissed. But then I decided like I will just put my phone into no disturb, so I don't know if they text me, and then when I wake up I will just have the text. That was my compromise, like kind of like I'm not gonna say anything, right? But then at some point I was like, no, I feel like they should like respect other people's times. Like even if you're in LA time,
Mhm.
why do you text me at 7? Like it's not like people get at the office at 9 or 10, you know, like why are you texting me at this time? But then I was like, just chill, don't respond, put your phone into no disturb, you know. So my question for this is like, it is okay to be flexible with that and not always speak up the
Yeah,
boundary.
you are the one who answers that question. We only create, that's a great question, by the way. We only create a boundary when it's affecting our relationship with the other person negatively, right? So yeah, you can be within yourself a little pissed off, like, oh, like I actually have a girlfriend who lives in California and she will constantly send me memes at 1 a.m. because she's still awake and I'm not. You know what I mean? And so I love her to death. We're friends since high school, you know, but so for me, I just go, I'll put the phone on mute and I'll catch him in the morning. It doesn't affect me negatively. I always ask myself, like, do you do the math? Because she used to live on the East Coast, like, you know that it's 1 in the morning
Yes.
for me. But
What it bothers me is like it's word things. Why do you think like because you have a phone you can text anyone at any time if it's work?
Right.
Like, you know, it's not urgent. Like just because it's in your mind, just text me at any time, you know. And that was a point that I wanted to make, but then I just decided to like, listen, I'm just putting do not disturb and I will respond at 10 a.m., you know.
Right. And that's your boundary, right? And if somebody ever asks, hey, we've been texting all morning, where have you been? That's when you can express your boundary. It's like, I don't pick up the phone until whatever time it is in California. And that's your choice. And you do not have to justify it. This is when I start work. They don't need to know why. And you see how much power that gives you? Just lands. And you don't have to deal with it, you know? So, and I can't tell you how many times that happens in my life and in many of our lives, right? Where we once we make that decision for what works for us and we calmly, clearly, lovingly express that boundary, clears up so much energy that we've just been leaking out toward other people. You know what I mean? Makes sense?
And just fun fact, my email signature has at the bottom like my working hours must be different than you, so don't feel obligated to respond. Others state like if I stated right. And I did this too because sometimes I email people very late and I just want them to know like you don't have to respond.
Oh,
Like,
that's beautiful.
you
See,
know,
look how
like
respectful you are. Yeah, I love that. That's great. And that works both ways. In fact, there you go. That's a little boundary in your signature, right? So beautiful. That's great.
I love my do not disturb, and it's the same thing because people will say, you know, what did I wake you up? It's like, no, it's just I don't get I have my do not disturb on until 9 o'clock in the morning, so I don't take calls before then.
Beautiful.
You know.
I love it. Yeah, good. And you guys are going to get so good at this now that you have the formula. But let's talk about what happens. And we're gonna move through this relatively quickly. But now all of your questions are going to be answered. What happens when your loving boundary is not honored? Let's go through that.
Mm.
And this happens so often. The first time it happens, first time Lisa's friend asks her again to come and chop vegetables, right? The first time Christina's husband gets pissy after she's established her boundary. Gentle reminder time, right? We're all human. You made the boundary. It was a big deal for you, but to them, it was just a conversation. So you may not remember, but I told you this thing, right? Hey, remember when I mentioned that I can't eat really late at night because I'm going to be like bloated and I don't want to take that out on you because I'll feel poopy, whatever. Gentle reminder. The second time it happens is a little bit firmer. Look, this is the second time. We've already talked about this once before, but are you aware that this is happening, right? We don't want to just presume they're being assholes, right? Are you aware that you are still getting on me about eating dinner late at night with you, or you're not pressuring, because I mean, but something like you're very insistent that I have dinner with you late at night, even though I've told you I can't really do that. Are you aware that that's happening? And this is a great opportunity for radical honesty. This is where you can really turn up the volume on radical honesty, where you can say, yeah, what I'm thinking about is what would happen if I just sit here. Let's imagine I keep sitting here and eating with you, or I come over and I chop your vegetables and my mind is elsewhere. The time we have together is going to be so stressful, and I don't want that for either of us. You see, you're turning up the volume on that. Finally, considering space from or ending the relationship. Now, Christine, I'm not suggesting divorce, and I don't really think it's going to get to that point. But it would work like this. If you can't honor this request, I'm not going to be able to spend time with you. So Christina's husband, if you can't honor this request, I can't sit here and look at you mopey. I'm going to do something else, or I'll be in bed reading and I'll see you in the morning, right? Or Lisa's friend, right? I'm not going to be able to spend as much time with you, and I really want to. That's going to be a bummer for both of us, right? So that's what I mean. It doesn't mean necessarily cutting ties, but not in these scenarios. You know, or let's say in Gloria's case with her past situation, if he has to talk about work in the morning, she may say, I'm going to need to leave the house for a little bit. I'm going to need some time for myself before I even talk to you if you can't honor this, right? Does that make sense? Okay, so it's important to know. And where's the other little thing here? Oops. Okay. So in case you still feel bad, this is the final one. Everybody recognize this guy? I'm sorry I picked white Jesus. That's all they had. But we want to talk about boundaries. This is a man to teach us about boundaries. You're worried about being a nasty person? Who was the nicest, sweetest, kindest man ever in history and in mythology? It's Jesus. Matthew 21:12, Jesus cleanses the temple. Jesus entered the temple courts and drove out all who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves. He said, do not change money on the grounds of my Father's house. And they went, yeah, fuck you. So what did he do? He enforced his boundaries. That Jesus right there is not a happy, sweet, loving Jesus. He's saying, listen, man, I have to stand up for myself, and I have to stand up for what I believe in. So this is a perfect example about like, and those people might be like, whoa, man, we're just trying to like make a living. Why are you getting all bent out of shape, dude? Because it's important to him. He doesn't have to justify his boundary. He made it. They ignored it. And he did what was necessary to fix the problem. Get it? So in case you feel bad, you're just following Jesus's footsteps. Oh, there's a chat here. Oops. Okay. All right. Everybody good with that? Okay, so let's just, and I'm gonna let you go in like 2 seconds here. Let's move on to your homework invitation for this week. We're going to just keep going with this. Practice boundary creation dialogue out loud using your highest self as a partner or guide. For example, either of those, Lisa, Christina, Gloria, if you ever have one that's coming up, maybe some guy on a production meeting call who keeps interrupting you and it's annoying as fuck and you want to talk to him about that. Practice your boundary creation dialogue out loud using your highest self as a partner or guide. So what would that look like? Practice it. Imagine, and the highest self will guide you in finding the right words. Will guide you in finding the right words that resonate with you and make you feel like this is coming from a loving place and not a bitchy place. Yeah. Or if you don't want to do that, you can actually do the thing, have a boundary discussion with the person, or you can do both, right? So you can do and or. You can practice it first and then have the discussion, or you can just lean right in if you feel comfortable doing it. If you're not comfortable having a discussion with the person yet, then please at least practice it out loud with your highest self. And then if you are so moved, here's a journal prompt for you. What are your thoughts and feelings about this exercise we just did today? What would you change, if anything? And then, of course, as always, any yeah buts. It's like, yeah, this sounds all good, Rachel, but I don't think I could do it with this person. Bring that to Friday's call and bring me a specific example and I'll walk you through it. Okay. And then as always, don't forget, I just said that Friday. Everybody, anyone need to take a photo of this before there we go. Got it? Awesome. Of course, you all get the emails of the replays, right? So I also will post the homework there in the emails too. So you know, but it's good to have it on your phone. Whew, everybody okay? Or it was a big ride we just took together.
Good.
You feel better about compassionate communication where boundaries are concerned?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking forward, I think, to trying it.
Yeah, well, and that's the other thing. If you do practice it between now and February, between now and Friday, it's a long day for me. Then I'd love to hear how it goes. Yeah. And again, if you do talk to these people and we have like, how did it go? And maybe things didn't go the way you thought, we can use the time on Friday to tweak it, right? There is no there's no limitation, no statute of limitations on a conversation when you're talking about compassionate communication. You can always bring up a subject that you talked about before, 2 weeks ago, because that's how our minds work. That's how life is. We have to take time to process things before we can speak articulately about them, right?
Hmm.
Okay. Any questions before we say goodbye for the day? Okay. Well, thank you for your attention and presence, and I'll see you on Friday.
Thank you.
You,
Bye.
Gloria.
Bye.